maybe it's because I'm fully aware, but on the flip side of that, I'm fully aware and I'm scared, which tells you if you're not even scared,
you're on the wrong side of the matrix.
Put down the mouse.
You're listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, where HIPAA and humor collide to make learning fun. Your delightful hosts are Donna Grindle and David Sims. Relax. HIPAA help is on the way.
Welcome to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast. Today we're going to be talking about business associates and some resolutions that have come out. And as we're recording this, we're actually coming up on July 4th, even though it's going to be longer than that before you listen to it. And so it's almost the same thing as all these fireworks going all over the place. That's kind of what all these reports are going to be like today. Except, I don't know about you, Donna, but have you ever been to the fireworks show where it's not really a show, it's like somebody decided to get the neighborhood together and shoot off fireworks, and then somebody accidentally kicks over the bucket and everybody's running and scattering and going places?
Yeah, we didn't have that many because, we shot ours off in the pasture away from the cows. Yeah.
So you have plenty of room and distance to run.
Yeah, downhill. Always shoot downhill.
That's a good thing to do, I'm sure. So in looking at today's information that you supplied, there's a lot that happened and been going on here recently with some resolutions, particularly with business associates. That's something that we're always interested in because it's something fairly new in dealing with business associates. And since we're always picking on covered entities, it seems it's nice to change gears a little bit and look at some things that business associates need to work on.
Some things they've done to the covered entities.
Yeah. Oh, man. So that brings us to the first one that is a settlement, which is pretty interesting. I'll let you dig into what happened with that.
Well, it's actually just, this is new news as opposed to old news. Well, it's new news.
It happened a couple of years ago.
It's new news. The settlement is new news. However, the problems, old news. Because this one, it's one of those, when you work in healthcare and the organizations and how they're put together, it is amazing to me sometimes how convoluted it can become. And in this particular case, there is a Catholic Healthcare Services of the Archdiocese of Philadelphia. That's a mouthful to get out. But anyway, that entity is a business associate who does the management and IT services to 6 skilled nursing facilities in the Philadelphia area. So you can see it's one of those things of we created an entity that does the IT services and the management services, so the billing and all of this. And we work with entities like this where they have this one entity that does the business part of it, and then the individual providers don't have to worry about it in their practices. Somebody else is taking care of it. And this took it a step further and went into skilled nursing facilities, which is, even bigger case because you're going to have residents and those kind of things. So you're going to have a lot more information and people. Well, seems that they total number of individuals affected, combined breaches was 412. So that makes this interesting by itself because it's not one of the giant ones.
Right.
Okay. So I'm like, how did that end up here? And the issue is that an iPhone, unencrypted and not password protected, which we've talked about this before. We had a whole episode on smartphones are simply computers that make phone calls, and you need to take care of them like you do computers. And it had PHI on it, Social Security numbers, diagnosis, treatment, medical procedures, family members, legal guardian, all kinds of stuff. So I'm not even sure why you would even have that on an iPhone or what kind of app or whatever they were doing. So that doesn't make sense. They had no policies in place for managing the devices or where you could take them. And we've talked about having policies in place for mobile devices, mobile management, and what to do in a security incident. And guess what else they didn't do?
They didn't have password.
Well, they didn't have a password, and they had not done a risk analysis or risk management plan.
Oh, step number 1 and 2.
Right. And so they just went in, and basically no one was doing HIPAA is what it sounds like to me. You think about it. Well, they probably had the NPP. And this one goes back to 2014. So we're not talking that,
not that long ago.
What was it? There were a couple of them that they announced earlier this year went back to 2012. So it's the fact that they had no organization-wide risk analysis even in 2014, and prior to 2014, they're having practically every other one of those resolutions prior to this happening said you're not doing a risk analysis. And we go ahead and we preach it, and no one's listening still. So just another point of it's just the same old. But then again, it's news. So the big news is it's a business associate that's getting the resolution. It's $650,000 in a 2-year settlement. And in the resolution, it specifically states, and I've heard people debate about when a business associate was really responsible for, like, where is that line in the sand where they're going to say, as of this date, you should have done these things. And it specifically says September 23rd, 2013 is the BA compliance date. It says that in the resolution thing of from this date, they hadn't done these things. So now we know that date. We know that they can find a BA. And we know this interesting quote that was in the press release, $650,000, that's still Consuela money to me. I don't know about you. Where I'm going to be, whole new.
Into Mexico.
I'm here to serve you. My name is Consuela. And I'll have to tan better than I do today. I don't know what I'll do about that. But they made a point of saying, in determining the resolution amount, OCR considered that CHCS provides unique and much-needed services in the Philadelphia region to the elderly, developmentally disabled individuals, young adults aging out of foster care, and individuals living with HIV and AIDS. So basically what they're saying is this could have been way worse because you're helping people that already can't pay, then we're not going to nail you as bad as we could. So you got to believe, you're talking well over $1 million if it hadn't have been, something along these lines. I would think anyway.
Right.
So, well over $1 million. Don't be thinking you're going to get off with just $650,000.
Yeah,
and
no kidding.
They do try to make it substantial enough to get your attention, but not so big that it closes you. At least they don't try to taunt them because they have the power. And we talked about before that people freak out about these resolution agreements. These are settlements. These are not actual fines. What was it in April? They actually came out with a fine for somebody that could have settled for way less.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
That's kind of. I don't know why you'd want to go that far.
I know. Well, they just were adamant that they didn't do anything wrong, even though it's like, here's what the law says. Well, we didn't do anything wrong, but here's what the law says. Well, that can be, what was it? The guy that told me, there's a guy one time that told me the law can be interpreted different ways. It says you're going to do a risk analysis. Do a risk analysis. Well, you can interpret that a different way. What is a risk analysis? Don't take me down that rabbit hole. No. So clearly, we've established in this one resolution that BAs are going to get hit appropriately. They will take into account the services you do, but that doesn't mean they're not going to fine you. We know that the date is September 23rd, 2013 is the line in the sand. And it's still a problem that there's no organization-wide risk analysis. And, when you do the risk analysis, you can do the drill down ones. We talk about it when we're talking about, okay, how can we implement this one thing or, we're going to add a website. You do a risk analysis of that individual item, maybe. But if you don't look at your organization as a whole and figure out where is PHI moving around, one of the things that we actually do is identify applications that you're using. There's a lot of people, here's a list of your applications, here's a list of your devices, and here's the risk that we see on your network. Boom, you're done. That's not it. Because where do you know that the PHI is moving to and from? Where's it coming into? Where's it being stored? If you don't identify that, then you can't make sure you're taking care of everything.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it.
And you can't develop a plan, an action plan, a risk management plan, unless you know where the risks are.
Right, or you have a risk. It's kind It's kind of like saying, okay, we're gonna do a play, and we're gonna put this play on, and here's a bunch of actors. Go. And go.
Yeah.
Cue, whatever. Everybody's standing around. They don't know what to do. Same kind of thing. You're right.
Yeah. But it starts at the top. I mean, we talk about that a lot, with businesses and covered entities and business associates are the same in that, if you want things to happen properly, then that has to come from the top.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's it. Anybody that has ever listened to us talk about the culture of compliance, and we've even talked about just recently where somebody said, well, we can have these policies, but we need to have exceptions for certain people that don't have to follow it. I'm like, well, just don't do it. Don't have the policy. Because if the owners of the company aren't going to follow them, what makes anybody else responsible for following them?
Mm-hmm.
It's that my dad would say, do as I say, not as I do. And what you end up doing is what he does.
All right.
So whatever dad says, that's what I'm going to do until I get old enough to figure it out on my own and say, wow, dad was wrong about that. I'm not going to do that. I have more information now than dad did then. We'll go with that. So it hurts a whole lot more than it did. That car was a whole lot more solid when dad drove it. It was made of steel. But anyway, so that whole process of if it doesn't come from the top down, it's not going to happen. So when we implement some of our training resources and stuff, we work with the CEO, the executive, the provider, whoever's in charge, and say, we need you to make this statement and make it be something that's readily available to anybody to hear at any time, to remind them. And, one of our star students, the guys over at Patient Code, Kurt Lovell there, shout out to Kurt. He is fantastic at making sure every time we do the quarterly HIPAA training there, he stands up and reiterates to the group, we believe in this. We need to protect our clients' data. We need to protect the patients that have been entrusted to us. And this is how we need to run our business, is a culture of compliance. And he is so good about bringing that in from the top down and every single person there. So we call them our star students because they are so diligent at the point of worrying about it. When even the marketing guy goes, yeah, we even talk about HIPAA all the time. You've got a culture of compliance. And then you have the cases where you get a call from the seventh practice manager.
Practice manager in 2 years.
Going, hey, do you know anything about us? Yeah, and you're right, though. You sat her down and said, look, you got a mess.
Yeah.
And that's not exactly what you said, but I liked what you said. But anyway.
It's worse than you know.
Yeah. Why do you figure it out and don't call me?
They might have the 8th practice manager in 2 years before long.
Yeah. Once they get in and see how mess it is, and then you try to convince the doctor, and everybody calls you, all 7 of them, haven't you? And you say the same thing. Or maybe the first 3 you said something different, and now all the rest of them you say the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying, call Donna. Don't call me.
Don't call me, call Donna.
So anyway,
she can help you.
It's important to do it from the top down. It's not going to happen unless you do. And that brings us to, so we had a BA resolution agreement, and now we have a new breach recently announced it happened when a BA was hacked. And it's the Patterson Dental Supply. I like this. A trusted third-party vendor that provides software and helps manage dental practice information for various providers. One of their providers is a tiny little place called Massachusetts General Hospital.
Yeah, not tiny.
Something no one's ever heard of. Anyway, so they just recently, in fact, hospital executives posted an apology on the hospital website on June 29th. 4,300 patients.
Wow.
Yes. That is more than the 400 that got the $650,000 fine. But the company had some sort of hack into their system, and I haven't found all of the scary details yet, because they notified the feds, or at least law enforcement will say. Mm-hmm. They notified law enforcement in February that, the business associate notified Massachusetts General and law enforcement in February that an unauthorized individual gained access to electronic files. That's also known as "we were hacked." Isn't that called spin when you do that?
Either that or somebody internally, maybe an ex-employee. Doesn't really say anything.
Well, everybody's calling, like the headline says, "we were hacked." But everybody's going to call it something. Hacked is a newsworthy thing, whereas unauthorized access is not as newsworthy.
Yeah, doesn't sound near as bad.
Yeah, or attention grabbing. But the investigators said, don't make the announcement, because we talk about you got the time frame, and they did let them know right away. They said, don't make the announcement because we want to do the investigation, and they don't know that we know about them. So keep quiet. Don't let anybody know we're on to them. And they were apparently given the free to go. You can do it at the end of May. So then they had to get all of their ducks in a row, about everything that had been found and how many people, and off they went. So they're just now getting it all out in the news. But here's another third party. And you got to wonder. Now, good news is they say trusted third party. So
as opposed to an untrusted third party.
I know. Let's give the data to an untrusted third party. That would be funny to see. We gave our data to an untrusted third party. That's called a breach, isn't it?
I see that more often than I do the other.
So apparently, in this big breach of things where it says that they provide software to manage dental practice information for various providers, I'm wondering what other providers are involved that we're going to start hearing about now. Massachusetts General may have just been the big one.
Yeah, and Patterson, I think, is a pretty big outfit.
Yeah. So if it's like when what was the one in Indiana that got hit? And they had a similar problem because when these BAs get hit, they're holding information for tons of providers. Mm-hmm. And depending on how they have things set up, if they get in, they get to everybody, not just one. And that in itself is a huge problem. And people don't realize when we keep saying, well, make sure you have the BAA, and everybody's like, well, they signed a BAA, we're good. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no. We've seen it. We've seen it in action, haven't we?
Yeah. And when your BA violates HIPAA, you should probably recognize that and do something about it.
Well, people send me those business associate agreements to review and just get my opinion. And of course, I have to start with, I'm not an attorney. I'm not giving you legal advice. I'm just reading this and telling you what I think. And it's not a legal opinion. You good with that? Because if you're not good with that, I'm not giving you any. But, I'm just saying these are the points that I see in there, and these are the points I don't see in there, and ask questions about that point, and also talk to your attorney. Don't talk to me. But you see these things where people are making it more and more possible to wiggle around things. And, I'm active on Quora, which, the Q&A site and question and answer site. and people are on there all the time. What if we develop software and we do this stuff and we have all the patients sign that they don't care about their HIPAA rights? Does that make sure? Because so if the doctors had them sign that if they use this and the doctors sign it and the patient signed it, we wouldn't have to be a BA. Really?
Yeah.
If that were, and I actually answered if that were the case, everybody would be having them sign away their rights.
Yeah. I've seen a few smaller doctor's offices that do that. They'll have, within their documentation that you have to sign when you become a patient, it says that you relinquish your rights to, HIPAA privacy and stuff like that.
Well, and I'm pretty sure that's, if you ever see that, please report it to HHS because that's just wrong. Yeah. And I don't think that legally they can do that. I think.
Be interesting to see.
Yeah. I don't think that they have the that would stand up, so to speak. Mm-hmm. But everybody's always trying to get around it, and so I wonder if anyone's done a due diligence on these guys. Are they doing what they're supposed to do? And if they are, then I'm fine. Things happen, people make mistakes. Security can only be so good. If you're watching, you're still going to get. It's not if, it's when. We always hear that. And the difference between watching and ignoring is going to be brought up in our third topic, which goes further to say, are business associates out there doing things that no one knows about? Because all of this news that we hear about, we've got the resolution, we've got the breach announcements, and then recently on the dark net. And have we ever talked about the dark net and explained it?
I know we've mentioned it a few times. I don't know that we've ever explained it as far as what it is, but it's funny because I'm starting to hear that term like just on TV shows now, whereas you didn't a year or so ago, you never really heard it.
Right. Yeah. The dark net is, in one of the classes where I talk about online security, I have a picture. And it's a ship going towards think a Titanic and an iceberg, right? The Titanic it wasn't sunk by the ice at the top that you could see. Mm-hmm. And that ice at the top that you could see, that's the internet that everybody knows. That's the internet with Amazon and Google and all of that stuff. That's the internet. What sunk the Titanic was this massive chunk of ice that's underwater that you can't see. Yep. That's the dark net.
That's the dark net.
It's way bigger than the internet, way more scary, and there's no, rules or rhyme or reason. It's where all the criminal stuff takes place. Granted, it's also where a lot of technical things are developed, and security tools because the criminals are down there. Let's see what we can do. But it is a very scary place, and it's where the currency of choice is Bitcoins and those kind of things. So
yeah, and it just so people know this, it can't be accessed unless you have specific software and configurations and authorization and stuff like that. So
right,
you're not going to get on Chrome and go to darkweb.com and you're in.
Now, if you were one of those parents and you see your kid, they've downloaded a new browser called Tor, Tor.
Yeah, there you go.
You need to cut that off. Take that computer, take it away, and take it to somebody who knows because they're in the bad stuff.
That's the Ouija board.
That's it. And it's a very special place. And I don't. Do you even have that browser loaded? I mean,
nope.
I have no need to go there. I'm not going to get that deep into security. But the people who do monitor that, I read what they talk about. It's kind of like I'm going to read what the police tell me happened out on the streets in a gang war or in Fallujah. I'm going to read about it, but I'm not going myself.
Mm-hmm.
That's
it's like we were talking earlier about some of the problem with people is you don't know what you don't know, mm-hmm. or you should know. We were talking about something, but that's kind of my thing is, I don't care how good I think I am with security. I know I don't know a lot of what these people that do this stuff day in and day out and just have massive amounts of skills when it comes to hacking. So I know to stay away from it.
Yeah, I mean, and you're probably a lot like me. I understand all this stuff. I know what you're supposed to do to be secure and all those kind of things. I am constantly paranoid that I'm going to get hacked. I understand it, and I'm just constantly, I'm going to make a mistake. I'm going to forget to do something. I'm going to open something up that I shouldn't. I'm going to click something and not paying attention. I am paranoid about it, and I am just, and maybe it's because I'm fully aware, but on the flip side of that, I'm fully aware and I'm scared, which tells you if you're not even scared,
you're on the wrong side of the matrix.
Put down the mouse. So, but on the dark net, there's big news because they have started releasing big files of medical data. It's PHI. Hundreds of thousands, if not millions, are starting to hit the dark web for sale. And what's really bad is because when they sell it, they'll put it out there and they'll say, here's a deal, and we're selling them for X amount, and this is the kind of data. And they'll give you sample data. They'll tell you a description of where it came from and all these kind of things, right? So then I should take that information, the sample data, the description, all that, and I should be able to track it back to a breach.
Yeah, should.
Capiche? Should. There would be the key. People are saying, I can't match this to any breach. And they're getting the actual data, and they can't match it to a breach. So either I've got unreported breaches where people know about it and mum's the word.
Or they don't know that it even happened.
Yeah, they don't know what they don't know.
Yeah, they're not monitoring it, so they have no idea.
Yeah, so that's the difference between watching and not watching right there. That's what led us into this is if you're watching, then you can at least catch some of this stuff at some point. But if they're in there wandering around for a long time, I mean, you don't even, well, we get to say the word, David. What is it that we get to say? They can exfiltrate.
Oh, yes. Some big words. You might have to put some definitions on the website for me because
I know. Exfiltrate's going to become a new big word that everybody learns, because that's the big, ransomware is going to give us that word. Is it going to exfiltrate the data? I've infiltrated your network and now I will exfiltrate your data.
After I propagate around.
God. Propagate around. Yeah, so we're already working on an episode about medical device security, and it's got all kinds of big words in it. So, worms, though, that's not a big word. But if you are seeing this data out here, and there's a lot, and you can't match it to a breach, and it's not that, I mean, those big packets of records, everybody went, oh, that's, it's got to be Anthem. It's got to be one of these big ones. No, it's not matching up. And when they do start to track it down, they'll call up the provider and go, well, we hadn't had a breach. We don't know. So is it that it's actually happened the provider doesn't know? Is it that they've kept their mouth shut? Is it happening at one of their business associates like the two we just talked about? Which is, I don't know about you, but I would be concerned that we're going to find more of those because no one's looking.
Yeah. Well, just like you mentioned, the business associate could do business with a ton of different covered entities. And if you track that information back to, let's say, a hospital or a physician or whatever, they could be like, yeah, that's our patient, but we've done all of our checks and balances and we don't have a hack. And that's when you find out it happened because of a third-party vendor.
And it's a third-party vendor of a third-party vendor, like the Stanford deal we've talked about.
Yeah, and that's, those are, and here's one thing too that I should mention, because I've heard this before, maybe you have, but I've heard people say, well, they do business in healthcare all the time and they have all these other clients. They have to be HIPAA compliant.
Oh, God.
I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've heard that.
And my favorite, you ask for the BA due diligence and you're asking them simple questions. Who's your security officer? When was your last risk analysis? People will freak out. This is proprietary information.
Mm-hmm. Well, you remember that a vendor we had that one time, it was a fairly new vendor on the scene, and everything they had on their website was HIPAA this, HIPAA that, medical this, medical that. And we sent them a BA due diligence, and they were like, this is a little bit far-reaching, don't you think? I'm like, no, it's not that difficult.
No, they're very specific questions about the training and your culture of compliance, those kind of things. Tell me what kind of program you have.
I love it when they go, none of our other vendor or none of our other business associates ever ask us these questions.
Doesn't it make you want to poke your eye out?
It's like, oh my gosh.
They're gonna.
If they're not, then they're wrong too.
You know why they're gonna? Because I'm out there teaching classes, telling everybody to do it. And so are other people. It's this OCR announcement here. It's the third party. We've got other cases that we're talking about where it's the vendors who are responsible for the release of data, but who still has to bear the burden of the reputation issue and their patients coming in upset. If your patient walks in, you can't say, here, call this dental supply company and talk to them about it.
Mm-hmm.
Can't be doing that. Or here, talk to our IT provider who said that they had this covered. And it wasn't David Sims. Do not call David Sims.
Call Donna.
No. See, that's just wicked. Yeah. So clearly, there's a lot going on that's not being reported. Otherwise, we wouldn't be finding these things out on the dark net. And again, I'm not going to go look at those to give you, because often I'll go read everything myself before we talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to do that.
Get on the dark web and find out about it.
I'm not going to do it.
See if your information's on there.
Oh God!
Oh, here's another quote that makes you want to shoot yourself. Is, well, I'm sure my information's already out there 100 times. What difference does it make?
Oh yes, it's the 101st that's going to kill you, though. It's like saying to a boxer, well, you know what? He's been hit in the head 100 times. 110 is not going to matter. Just go ahead.
Yeah.
The damage is done.
Well, you brought it up before, and it's probably been a while, but you made it a point on one of the earlier podcasts that fixing your credit report because somebody done something is bad enough, and we've heard horror stories about that. But fixing your health records, I'm not sure you can do it.
Well, yeah, we've talked about medical identity theft repeatedly, and clearly it is not something. Well, I certainly would never want to go through it. I mean, because you never get rid of it. You never get rid of it. What was that quote the guy said? His records had been stolen by a really sick dude he'd gone to the dentist, he'd gone to all this other, and the records are all mixed together. And he told his son, look, if I'm out of town and somebody dies in a plane crash and they tell you that it's me and they identify me by dental records because my body was burned up, check again. Give me a call. Because his teeth are in my records. And so it's like that bad. I don't even know for sure that you're the one. Only thing left is dental records. I can't be sure it's you. Come on. That's bad.
Yeah, that is pretty bad.
So, yeah. And people that get these $300,000 bills from the hospital for services that they never even had. And there's a story about the guy who ironically works in security, had to physically go to a hospital and in front of the CFO and the controller, pull up his shirt to show he had no scar for this. I'm telling you, I did not have this no scar. That's what it took to get out from under that bill.
Wow.
Yeah. There's a guy telling this story. I mean, we're not talking just random people. These are people that are so frustrated because they know. They're like, look, somebody stolen my identity. This is what happened. This went, nope, you owe the $25,000. What? No, thank you.
Yeah.
No, don't want to be part of that. And then people act like, yeah, it's out there everywhere. I don't have to worry about it. I give up.
Yeah. And that's part of the problem is that they just throw their hands up and say, oh, well, it's out there. Somebody's got it. And that might be true, but it might not be the person that's going to do anything with it.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. Or it might have, it was picked up, but not only did they not do anything with it, but it's been superseded and data gets stale. They won't, at one point they'll decide, okay, that's so old. I don't know how far out, but also if it's not connected to other valuable data. So if your date of birth and your name's out there a bunch of times, but it's not connected to any other of your valuable data, it's not as valuable. Well, if your valuable data is involved, it isn't as valuable. Okay, I think I'm needing to be done. I'm sorry. In the dictionary under redundant, it says see redundant. That's one of my favorite Robin Williams lines.
Oh, man. Interesting.
Yes.
So everybody's got a lot of work to do with business associates this week.
Well, and you business associates, take note. $650,000 settlement because they were being nice over an unencrypted iPhone that we have no idea why they put stuff on it.
Mm-hmm.
They had no mobile security policies, no risk analysis and risk management plan, and they dinged them back to September 23rd, 2013. So go pull your records going back that far. If you've got them, spot on. If not, you might leave a spot in your drawers.
Well, September 23rd, 2013 was the omnibus rule date. So it was It was after that, wasn't it?
Well, this breach was after it. Yeah. This breach happened much later, but they're defining that. Well, it happened in early 2014. They announced the investigation April 2014. Right. So it was in between those two. But
if it could just happen a year earlier.
Darn the luck. So you do know that that's where they're going back to. Now, covered entities, they're going back to
way back
2003, 2005. But you business associates need to pay attention. They're saying this is when you should have been compliant.
Yeah. And don't take a business associate's word for it. I mean, you have to do that due diligence. I mean, trust me, in the IT world, I see it all the time. Vendors are saying, hey, offer HIPAA services. Here's a tool to scan things. Here's a tool to do this and all that. And very, very few times do they actually have the conversation of, oh, by the way, Mr. IT guy, you also have to be HIPAA compliant to be here to do these things.
I know. People think it's easy.
They don't have that conversation. They don't care to have the conversation because they're selling a software or a tool or whatever. Compliance is not something they care about. They're just saying you can make money using this tool. And they don't tell you that you have to have the other stuff. It's almost like you go and you buy a car and they don't tell you have to have a license to drive it. They're here, take it up. We don't care.
Yeah, no, you don't need insurance. You don't need a license. Go on.
Yeah, here, just buy the car. See ya.
You got some cash? I'll take it. You're right. It's all about sales, and it's not about doing the right thing. And what's funny, I mean, we have all the people that go and they hear how easy it is, and then they come to us and they're like, "Can you help me get compliant?" Sure, we'll teach you about it. Well, this is way harder than what I thought it was going to be. I'm going to go back to the other people who said it was easy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, go right ahead. All they want you to do is buy their stuff.
Yeah,
so
pretty much.
Yes. Yeah,
we'll do HIPAA for you.
Oh God, don't even start. That's we've had the policy and procedure template discussion. It takes us right back to that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That recent episode. So anyway,
well, that's our episode for today. We hope you enjoyed it. Take off to iTunes right now. We'll wait on you. Do a review. Go ahead. We're waiting. Can you get your review in? You also share us out on social media. Your choice, Snapchat or Facebook or Twitter or all these other little things that keep popping up all over the place. I can't keep up with.
Yeah, no, I can't keep up. I'm narrowing my scope.
I know. Some of them are like, hey, you see so-and-so? I'm like, I've not heard of that yet.
Yeah, my friends, aren't you on Instagram? I don't have time to do any more. I'll follow you.
I know. This cop pulled me over and was like, what are you doing stalking this lady? I'm like, I'm just a follower.
Oh, no. All right. Well, there we go. We're all done now, folks.
That's it. So anyway, visit us on the web at helpmewithhipaa.com. We have a place there you can ask questions, and we might even feature a question on a future episode. So for Donna and myself, remember that HIPAA is not about compliance. It's about patient care.
You've been listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, hosted by Donna Grindle and David Sims. The show created to help you with HIPAA. For more information or to ask us a question, visit our website at helpmewithhipaa.com. Neither Donna Grindle or David Sims are attorneys, and they do not offer binding legal advice concerning regulatory compliance. The information in this podcast should not be relied upon or construed as legal advice in any way. Consult your attorney for legal advice concerning compliance with HIPAA regulations.